The kingdom of Judah needed a hero. The land was in turmoil, and the people were desperate for a leader who could guide them back to prosperity and faith. The once great kingdom was now a shadow of its former self. Plagued by internal strife and external threats, the people yearned for a savior, someone who could restore their faith and lead them to a brighter future. It was 715 BC. The world was a very different place, filled with ancient wonders and civilizations that have long since vanished. In this turbulent time, the kingdom of Judah stood at a crossroads, its fate hanging in the balance. The decisions made in this era would shape the future of the nation for generations to come. Ahaz, the previous king, had turned away from God. His reign was marked by a series of poor decisions that led the kingdom astray. He abandoned the worship of the one true God and instead embraced the idols and false gods of neighboring nations. This not only weakened the spiritual foundation of Judah, but also led to political and social instability. He filled the land with idols. Everywhere one looked, there were symbols of false worship. The temples that once stood as beacons of faith were now desecrated with the images of foreign gods. The people, following their king's example, turned away from their ancestral faith and embraced these new, empty deities. The spiritual decay was evident, and the kingdom suffered as a result. The people forgot the one true God. Then Ahaz died. His death marked the end of a dark chapter in Judah's history. But it also left the kingdom in a state of uncertainty. The people were lost, both spiritually and politically. They needed a new leader, someone who could guide them out of the darkness and into the light. His son Hezekiah became king. Hezekiah was young, but he possessed a wisdom and determination beyond his years. As he ascended to the throne, the people looked to him with hope and anticipation. They believed that he could be the one to restore their faith and lead them to a brighter future. Hezekiah was only 25 years old. Despite his youth, he was ready to take on the immense responsibility of leading a kingdom. He understood the challenges that lay ahead and was prepared to face them head-on. His age did not deter him. Instead, it fueled his determination to prove himself as a capable and righteous leader. He was a young man in a difficult position. The kingdom was in disarray, and the people were divided. Hezekiah knew that he had to act quickly and decisively to restore order and faith in Judah. He sought the counsel of wise advisors and spent many hours in deep thought and prayer, seeking guidance for the path ahead. But Hezekiah had a strong faith in God. His faith was his anchor, providing him with the strength and courage to face the challenges before him. He believed that with God's guidance, he could lead his people back to righteousness and restore the kingdom to its former glory. He knew that Judah had strayed from God's path. The evidence of their deviation was all around him, in the ruins of their temples and the idols that littered the land. Hezekiah was determined to change this. He knew that the first step in restoring the kingdom was to bring the people back to their faith. Hezekiah decided to lead his people back to God. He began a series of reforms aimed at purging the land of idols and restoring the worship of the one true God. He called upon the people to return to their faith and to follow the commandments that had been given to their ancestors. His leadership inspired a revival, and the people began to turn back to God. He was ready to face the challenges ahead. Hezekiah knew that the path to restoration would not be easy. There would be opposition, both from within and from neighboring nations. But he was prepared to face these challenges with courage and determination. He believed that with God's help, he could overcome any obstacle. He knew God would be with him. This belief gave him the strength to move forward, even in the face of great adversity. Hezekiah's faith was unwavering, and he trusted that God would guide him and his people through the difficult times ahead. A new era was beginning in Judah. With Hezekiah at the helm, the kingdom was poised for a revival. The people were ready to follow their new king, and together they would work to restore their faith and their nation. The future was filled with hope and promise, and a new chapter in Judah's history was about to unfold. King Hezekiah was a man of action. He didn't waste time. He immediately began to make changes. Hezekiah reopened the temple doors. He called for the priests to return. He wanted the people to worship God again. Hezekiah knew that the idols had to go. He ordered them all destroyed. He even destroyed the bronze snake. Moses had made it long ago, but people began to worship it. This angered God. Hezekiah wanted to please God, not anger him. He removed anything that stood between God and his people. Hezekiah wasn't just going through the motions. He truly loved God. He wanted to follow God's law. He told his people to do the same. Hezekiah knew that true strength came from God. Hezekiah restored the Passover festival. This was a special celebration. It helped the people remember God's goodness. They remembered how God had freed them from slavery in Egypt. Hezekiah's reforms were more than a change in rules. They were a change of heart. He was guiding his people back to God's love. Hezekiah's faith in God was about to be tested. The kingdom of Judah was facing an unprecedented threat, one that would challenge the very core of its existence. Hezekiah the king knew that this was not just a battle of armies, but a test of faith and resilience. A powerful enemy threatened Judah. The Assyrian Empire, known for its might and ruthlessness, was advancing. Their armies were vast, their soldiers fierce, and their reputation for destruction was unparalleled. The people of Judah could feel the tension in the air as the Assyrian forces drew closer. The Assyrian Empire was on the rise. Their conquest had already swallowed many nations, and their ambition knew no bounds. They were expanding rapidly, and Judah was next on their list. The maps of the time showed the relentless spread of Assyrian control, inching ever closer to Jerusalem. This mighty empire conquered nation after nation. Cities fell before them like dominoes, each conquest adding to their strength and resources. The ruins of once great cities stood as silent witnesses to the Assyrians' unstoppable force. The stories of their brutal tactics and overwhelming power spread fear far and wide. They were fierce and ruthless. The Assyrian soldiers were trained to be merciless, their strategies designed to break the spirit of their enemies. Their reputation was enough to make even the bravest warriors think twice before standing against them. The artifacts from that era depict warriors with an unyielding resolve and a thirst for conquest. Now, they were setting their sights on Judah. The Assyrian king had decided that Jerusalem would be the next jewel in his crown. The plans for the siege were being laid out, and the Assyrian army was preparing for what they believed would be another swift victory. The people of Judah could see the storm gathering on the horizon. Many kings trembled in fear before Assyria. The might of the Assyrian Empire was such that many rulers chose to surrender without a fight, hoping to save their cities from destruction. The fear of Assyria's wrath was a powerful motivator, and many chose submission over resistance. The artifacts of the time show kings bowing in submission, their faces etched with fear. They surrendered their cities to avoid destruction. But Hezekiah was different. He was not willing to bow down to the Assyrian threat. He believed that surrender was not an option, and that true strength came from faith and determination. Hezekiah's resolve was unshakable, and he was prepared to stand his ground. He knew that true security came from God, not from armies. Hezekiah's faith was his greatest weapon. He turned to prayer, seeking divine guidance and strength. He believed that with God's help, Judah could withstand the Assyrian onslaught. His faith inspired his people, giving them hope in the face of overwhelming odds. Hezekiah prepared for the Assyrian attack. He strengthened Jerusalem's defenses. The city walls were fortified, and every possible measure was taken to ensure that Jerusalem could withstand a siege. The people worked tirelessly, driven by the belief that their efforts would make a difference. He built a tunnel to bring water into the city. This tunnel, known as Hezekiah's Tunnel, was a remarkable feat of engineering. It ensured that the city would have a steady supply of water even during a siege. This strategic move was crucial for the survival of Jerusalem, and it demonstrated Hezekiah's foresight and leadership. Hezekiah was determined to resist. He knew that the battle ahead would be tough, but he was ready to face it with unwavering resolve. His determination was a beacon of hope for his people, showing them that they could stand strong against the might of Assyria. He trusted that God would protect his people. Hezekiah's faith was the cornerstone of his resistance. He believed that with God's protection, Judah could overcome any challenge. His prayers were a testament to his unwavering belief in divine intervention. and they inspired his people to hold on to their faith and hope. Section 5. Sennacherib's Challenge. The Assyrian army, led by King Sennacherib, marched towards Jerusalem. They set up camp outside the city walls. Sennacherib was confident. He had never lost a battle. He thought Jerusalem would be easy to conquer. He sent his chief official, Rabshakeh, to speak to the people. Rabshakeh stood outside the city walls and shouted insults at the people of Jerusalem. He mocked their God and their king. He told them resistance was pointless. He tried to break their spirit. He wanted them to surrender without a fight. Section 6. The walls of Jerusalem tremble. Rabshakeh's words were like poison arrows. He spoke in Hebrew so everyone could understand. Your God can't save you, he taunted. Look around. What city has their God saved from Assyria? He pointed at the towering walls of Jerusalem. These walls are your only hope, and they won't hold us back for long. Fear gripped the hearts of the people. They looked to Hezekiah. What would their king do? Would he be strong enough to stand against this giant? Section 7. Words of defeat, whispers of faith. Hezekiah was troubled by Rabshakeh's words. The Assyrian envoy had spoken with such confidence, belittling the power of Judah and mocking their faith. The words echoed in Hezekiah's mind, filling him with dread and uncertainty. He felt the weight of his people's fate pressing heavily on his shoulders. He knew his army was no match for the mighty Assyrians. The sight of the Assyrian forces with their gleaming armor and countless soldiers was a terrifying reminder of their impending doom. The Assyrians had conquered many lands, leaving destruction in their wake. How could Judah, a small kingdom, stand against such a formidable foe? He went to the temple and prayed. In the sacred halls of the temple, Hezekiah sought solace and guidance. The flickering light of the candles cast long shadows, mirroring the darkness that threatened his kingdom. Hezekiah's heart was heavy, but he knew that only through prayer could he find the strength to face the challenges ahead. Lord, we are in danger, he cried out. His voice echoed through the empty halls, a desperate plea for divine intervention. Hezekiah's faith was unwavering, but the fear of the unknown gnawed at him. He poured out his heart, hoping that his prayers would reach the heavens. The Assyrians are here to destroy us. Please, God, save us. The threat was real and imminent. The Assyrian army was at their gates, ready to unleash their wrath. Hezekiah's plea was not just for himself, but for his people, his city, and his faith. He knew that only a miracle could save them now. Show them that you are the one true God. Hezekiah's prayer was a declaration of faith. He believed that God would not abandon them in their hour of need. He prayed for a sign, a demonstration of divine power that would not only save Judah, but also reaffirm their faith in the one true God. Then Hezekiah sent messengers to the prophet Isaiah. Hezekiah knew that Isaiah, a man of God, would have the wisdom and guidance they needed. The messengers ran through the streets, their urgency reflecting the gravity of the situation. They carried with them the hopes and fears of an entire kingdom. Isaiah was a man of God. He had a reputation for his deep faith and his connection with the divine. In times of crisis, people turned to him for counsel and comfort. Isaiah's words had the power to inspire and to bring hope to the hopeless. He would know what to do. Hezekiah trusted Isaiah's wisdom. He believed that through Isaiah, God would provide the guidance they desperately needed. The prophet's insight and connection with the divine were their best hope in these dark times. The people waited anxiously for Isaiah's response. The city was filled with a tense silence as everyone awaited the prophet's words. They knew that Isaiah's message could determine their fate. The anticipation was palpable, and every moment felt like an eternity. Hope mingled with fear in their hearts. The people of Judah were torn between hope and fear. They wanted to believe that God would save them, but the threat of the Assyrian army loomed large. Their faith was being tested, and they clung to the hope that their prayers would be answered. Would God answer their prayers? The question lingered in the air, a silent plea for divine intervention. The people of Judah had placed their faith in God, and now they waited, hoping for a miracle that would save them from the brink of destruction. Section 8. A city united in silence. Isaiah's answer was simple. Do not be afraid, he told Hezekiah. The Lord is with you. Isaiah said that God had heard Sennacherib's insults. He promised that God would defend Jerusalem. Hezekiah shared Isaiah's message. He urged his people to stay strong. He told them to trust in God. Hezekiah's courage calmed the people. They chose to believe. A hush fell over Jerusalem. The taunts of the Assyrians were met with silence. This was the sound of faith. Section 9. Courage in the face of giants. That night something amazing happened. An angel of the Lord struck down the Assyrian army. When morning came, 185,000 Assyrian soldiers were dead. Sennacherib woke up to a camp of corpses. He was defeated. His pride was shattered. He retreated back to Assyria in shame. Hezekiah and his people were safe. They had faced a giant and emerged victorious. They learned that even when giants seem unbeatable, faith can move mountains. The memory of Hezekiah's courage would inspire generations to come.